Welcome to Game Time, episode number 6. I've got my brothers Brian and Brady here, both coaches. We're going to talk about some basketball coaching, give some tips and strategy, get it straight into audience question. Brian, Brady, how do you keep your team motivated when you're losing big early in the game?
I struggle with the question because it's almost framed in a defeatist attitude right from the start. Um, and I'm the eternal optimist.
So wait, let me just jump in here quickly, Brian. I knew that you're going to be good at this question because we've had this discussion, I think, before. Maybe one of the biggest things that I admire about your coaching style, positivity, but you always have teams that fight back. You can be down 20 going into the fourth quarter, and you will still claw your way back and make it a game. You will never give up. So I'm sure you have some tips on how to talk to your players when you're down.
well, but more importantly, the characteristics of your team generally do mimic your coach. So if my body language when we get down is to sit down in my chair and put my hands over my head and just watch things happen, probably not going to go so well. If when things aren't going well, I'm up and into it and fighting for every possession and wanting every loose ball and trying to get every stop we can to put a small run together, I'm going to bet more often than not your guys are going to respond to that. So I think the biggest thing in any of this is I just don't ever give up. I mean, I could be down 20 with 2 minutes left, and I still coach to the end, and I want everybody to get the most out of that finish. There's always something to play for. So I I just don't. I'll relay a really quick story. So before I coached at the collegiate level for 18 years, I was a head coach for 9 years in varsity high school. I had 1 year, my first year ever, where I coached. I was an assistant at the varsity level. And then I became head coach right away. And 27 years later, then that's where we are. So that first year as an assistant, though, I was young, enthusiastic, energetic. Um, we had a team that we weren't very good. And in the change room before the game of a start of a tournament, playing against a team who was clearly much, much, much better than us, um, our coach gave the rah rah speech of, "Hey guys, let's see if we can keep it within 40, and that'll be, that's a win for us today." And in my mind, I've never thought that way. I thought if you turn the scoreboard on and it says 0-0, let's play. So he probably wished he hadn't, but he said, "Brian, you want to add anything before we go out?" And you might have to beat this, but I said, "F that. It's 0-0. Let's go beat them." Right? We lost by 45, but it was, I just always believe there's a way. So if you believe as a coach and you coach that way, I think you'll find yourself in less situations where it seems your team is unmotivated.
So what do you do though? Let's break it down. Do you set small goals like 5 minutes from now? We're down 25. Let's be down 20 in 5 minutes.
Exactly. By halftime, let's get this to 15. Hey, by the end of the third, let's get this to 10. Hey, by the under 8 timeout, let's get it under, single digits. Yeah, I would put carrots out there constantly. And sometimes it might even have to just start with, let's get 3 stops in a row. Right. But yeah, you got to play games within games sometimes and compete and compete and compete. Guys, we're not looking at the scoreboard anymore. Okay, let's get 3 stops in a row. Let's go.
So if it's a game where competitively you should be pretty even with the team or better than the team, will you try different substitutions to see maybe boost the energy level with somebody off the bench, or what kind of stuff would you
Absolutely,
do?
absolutely. I've came into. We had one of the best teams I've ever coached, and we lost a heartbreaking conference semifinal 1 year, so it was going to prevent us from going to nationals. And we had a really, really good team, and and then we had to play a bronze medal game the next day because our conference still had that. And I'll be honest, the the guys weren't motivated to play for bronze because they thought our goal was always to win a national championship. And 4 minutes into that game, we were down, I think, 16-2. And I pulled the entire starting lineup and put in 5 guys off the bench. You got to try something different. You got to do something different. And you can't ever, if you give up, they give up. So we fought and we fought. We lost the game. It was a tough game to play and a tough game to coach. But again, I think your team's going to mimic you. And if you want them to respond and you want them to compete, then you got to show that you're competing. Don't sit down. Don't give up. Don't show bad body language. They'll do what you do.
You're also teaching life lessons as well. It's not just about basketball. Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into the second quarter. Do's and don'ts. First one, do you show your players the stat sheets after the game? Do or don't?
I didn't have to show them to them because, I mean, you're coaching at the college level. They're all online. They see them on their phone.
When you were coaching your daughter's team?
My daughter's team. When I coached my daughter's team through grade 5 through 8, there might have only been 2 kids on the whole team who gave a damn about a score sheet. And I would always say, you don't need to look at that or whatever. I tried not to make much of it. At the college level, I mean, if somebody had a special night or something like that, then you're going to say, hey, so-and-so had 14 boards tonight, man. That was big for us. But typically, there's a fine line in there because the people who want to see, you got to decide, are they seeing it because they really want to, like it's a selfish thing or it's a competitive thing? And I don't really have a problem with the competitive part. And if it's a selfish thing, you're probably dealing with that in other ways anyways. So overall, I don't care.
Like I say, do in the case that if somebody on your team did something great, maybe show it off. Hey, look at you, man. You got 8 steals today. Great work out there. But in terms of the younger kids, the reality is most of them can count. And if they are looking at it to see how many points they had, they know how many points they had. They're looking at it because they want to confirm that the guy at the table wrote down that he had as many points as he had. Like, it's not hard to count to 20 in a game. If you scored 10 times, you scored 10 times. And if you don't know you scored 10 times, you probably don't care to look at the score sheet. So I think whoever wants to look at it already knows, and they're just confirming. And whoever doesn't want to look at it doesn't care.
Brady, I'll fight back a little bit on that. You and I probably knew what the numbers were for ourselves when we played because that's what we did. I'm almost sure Dan doesn't remember shit. He could have had 26 and you telling me you had 12 and he'd say, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I would say just overall elementary school, grade school kind of thing, definitely a no. Because the score sheet is mostly only, unless you're keeping your own stats with a parent or a coach or on the bench or something, then maybe you can do that because you've obviously put some focus on stats. But for the most part, that stat sheet just tells points. That's it. And if that's all they're worried about, then you need to communicate that there's more to the game than just points. Okay, next one. Stopping practice to correct an individual player's mistakes.
In general, it don't.
Yeah, general, it don't, unless that issue is something that's common for everyone else as well, and you can make it a teaching point for the entire team, and not single them out.
I agree. Practice time is so valuable. Nobody gets enough gym time. You can't just keep stopping it every time. Unless it's a team-wide issue, pull them aside, find another time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Next one, playing your starters against the bench for practices, all practice long.
That's a tough one.
For younger kids, I say don't. And the reason being, that back end typically on a travel team isn't nearly as good as the starting 5. And if you put them against the 5 starters, they're just not going to get better. They're going to get beat every time in practice, most likely. And it's going to be almost demoralizing. You got to mix it up. especially at a younger age, and let everybody, play against everybody to try to, put your best players against your best players in practice. They'll get better. Putting them against your 8th, 9th, 10th player who isn't the best isn't going to make them better.
I would tend to agree with most of that. It's tough because the argument for obviously is to develop some continuity and things with the group that's going to be out on the floor most often. So yeah, at the collegiate level, I'm playing my starters together most times. I will sub as you would in a game. So, you get your 2 guys flip jerseys with another 2 guys, your 6th, 7th men. So they get a chance, almost like game conditions where you're rotating and subbing as you would in a game, so that different lineups get a chance to play with each other. But yeah, unfortunately, I always try to keep things competitive. So on a day maybe when the starters are playing extremely well and it doesn't feel as competitive as it should be, maybe you alter the score a little bit so there's a catch-up mode to it. You change things to where you start working on situations a little bit more. But yeah, at the older levels, I think you do more of keeping your starters together. Like Brady said, I think at the younger level, there's a lot of merit to mixing it up.
There's also, with keeping them together, there's also, my thought is the bench players then get to touch the ball more. Like if you're mixing 1 and 2 with 7, 8, and 9, odds are 7, 8, and 9 aren't touching the ball as much as they would if they were playing with 6 and 10 instead of 1 and 2. So your bench is going to develop a little more. You're going to have continuity with the starters. That's my feeling anyway.
It probably really comes down to more your feel for your team. So if like Brady first said, if your top 5 are extremely higher level than your next 5, well, there's probably not a lot of benefit in kicking the crap out of the same 5 guys every day or players every day. Mix it up. But if your team does have some ability or some depth, then you can probably do more of you make it competitive. I know with our national championship team, when we won the national championship, the bench guys to this day still call themselves Yellow Squad. So in practice, we had reversibles, black and yellows, and the second team, if you will, was wearing yellows, and they took it to heart every day. They wanted to beat the black team. So to this day, they still call themselves Yellow Squad. And so they took it as a pride thing. And that's also a reason why we won, is because they made every day competitive.
Okay, let's get into halftime. This is reserved for our silly topics. Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is one that I've wanted you to tell for a long time, and now that you're retired from coaching college basketball, tell us the pillow story.
Is there a statute of limitations here? Am I going to get arrested? There was a particular hotel in one city that we used to play in every year that had the nicest pillows in the world. And I may or may not have taken maybe my crappiest pillow at home and swapped it out for a good one a couple times. And I made the mistake of making that joke to my team one year. And so I guess one of my players did the same thing at a particular hotel. And the next Monday, the AD comes in and says, "Hey, I got a call from the hotel and one of their pillows has been switched out." And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, I didn't do that. And I thought, oh no. Oh no, one of the guys took my story to heart and did it. So I had the group together and I said, "Hey, did somebody walk out with one of those pillows?" Sure enough, guy said, "Yeah, shit, I did it." So I went back to the AD and I fell on my sword and I said, "Listen, I think it's my fault." I said, "I didn't set a very good example." I told them that I did it a couple of times while we were on the road. So someone thought it was okay for them to do it. So we got through it. The school paid for the pillow, but it was a bad decision on it was a terrible decision on my part to do it, and an even worse decision to tell the kids that I did it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the third quarter. Play of the week. We got a great baseline play here. Let's go. We're going with 3 players lined up low and a little offset. The player on the weak side cuts hard across the key using 2 screens to look for the pass. The first screener clears to the corner. The second screener goes up the lane to clear the key and be the safety. The defense switched on the cutter, who clears to the corner to make space for the forgotten player. The one up top times it perfectly and cuts hard to the basket for a wide open layup. Here's another look using my custom Coach Calls Timeout Playmaker. Go to coachcallstimeout.com to get hundreds of plays like this. All right, now we're into the fourth quarter. We have a good offense, bad defense situation here. This one's actually good defense or bad offense. Brian, what did you see when you watched this?
I'll go with bad offense. I'll just go with bad offense.
All right, Brady.
Yeah, bad offense. I mean, if you look at it, the perfect play wasn't to give it to the big guy. There was a wide open 3 just to the right of him. The defense was okay. They followed around, but even their switching on screens was pretty lazy, which means the offense wasn't very good because the defense was pretty much there every step of the way. So
I didn't mind the action from both. I mean, the ball moved side to side. They looked down low. Defensively, they did a good job when the ball came back up to the top and they stopped the curl. Unfortunately, the defense was just undersized and had no match. And luckily, they missed the offense missed the bunny there. But yeah, I thought it was good effort on both sides. Okay, Brady, stat of the day. We're done 4 quarters. Hit us up.
today is another simple stat that I came across. It's pretty crazy. There's one player in the history of the league to have more free throws made than field goals. And he's a current player. I don't know if you care to take a guess.
I know the answer.
Yeah, I know the answer too.
Yeah, it's James Harden, and he's currently at it's getting close. And I think by the end of his career, he'll probably have more field goals made than free throws. It's in the realm of 7,600, which is a ton. Ton. So shoot your free throws, kids.
Yeah, flop your head back and there's a good chance he's about to hit a serious decline. So who knows what his total numbers will be.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, he'll end up making more field goals. He's not going to shoot 7-8 free throws a game, but he'll probably shoot 8 threes.
All right, there you have it. Game Time episode 6 is complete. Share this with a coaching friend. Hit the like button, subscribe. We'll be back again. Thanks for joining us.